start recording that. Just check me audio settings are right. Yes, they are. So for anybody who doesn't know, I do record all these sessions and I put them all up on YouTube, so you can go back over previous sessions if there's anything. Well, I'm sure there'll be something somebody picks up. I learn as I go along as well. But it's nice to have the videos and just go through them slowly at your own pace if you're a complete beginner, which is what these sessions are really aimed at. But one of the things, as Bart kindly reminded me, that I wanted to cover last week was texture atlases, which is a nice way of what's the word? A nice way of optimizing your space. So rather than having many textures for lots of things, especially if you've got lots of small items, it's a good idea to put them all on the one texture, one material, and just reuse it across everything. And it's not difficult to do. There's a slow way, which is the proper way in using Blender, and there's the quick way using a paid add-on, which it is paid. I think it's about $20 US, I'm not sure. So it's not mega expensive, but it's a very useful, very nice add-on to have. But I'm just going to go through the Blender thing first of all, because I know Swifty Gaz went through this add-on on his session in the middle of the week, and if anybody was there, you'll have caught it. I think his stuff goes up on YouTube as well, but if I've got time, I'll go over that as well. But basically, no, I'm in Unity. That's not what I wanted. There we go, in Blender. I'm going to start by adding a plane, because planes are always handy to have. Because, you've got something to put all your stuff on. Now, why is that? Goodness gracious. There we go. You've got something to kind of cast shadows and things on. So I'm just going to add a few simple shapes, just a few primitives that are built in. We'll start off maybe with a UV sphere, which I'll move up. You can either use the gizmo to move things around, or you can use the hotkey G for grab, and you can move it around, and you can even constrain it to an axis if you hit Z, or X, or Y. So I'm just going to constrain it to the Z and bring it up here so it's just above the ground. I'll also right click and shade smooth. That looks quite nice. You can also exclude axes as well, so I might want to move it on the X and the Y but not the Z. So I could hit G and then Shift and Z to exclude it, and you can see we've got the green and the red lines now, seeing that we can move it on a flat plane and not move it up and down. So I'm going to move it over here, and I'm also going to bring in a torus because they are always cool, and I'll make it a bit chunky. So I'll zoom in on it, just using my scroll wheel on my mouse to zoom in, and then by open up this menu, I can increase or decrease the number of cuts. So if I keep it quite low, I'm keeping it reasonably optimized, low poly mesh, and we can also adjust the minor and major radii as well. So the major radius is basically how big the torus is going to be, but the thickness stays the same, and the minor radius you can increase or decrease how chunky it's going to be. And I'm going to shade that smooth, and I'll move that up on the Z and exclude the Z, move that here. Now there's something else you can do. There's a rotate function which will rotate it based on the camera view, or you can constrain that to an axis, so it's rotating around the Z, the X or the Y. But if you hit R twice, you've got free rotate, and you can literally do anything you like with it. So I'm going to just kind of do something artistic and stick it at an angle like that. And then lastly I'm going to bring in a monkey. which is called Suzanne for some reason. I know there's a history behind it, don't know why, but you'll see up here it's called Suzanne the monkey. We'll rotate that on the Z, bring it up a bit, move it over here. And I'm also going to shade smooth, but that's looking a bit weird. Got some weird shading, so I'm going to add a subdivision surface. There's two ways of doing this. There's the hotkeys, or you can add the modifier, subdivision surface modifier. It's got one level of subdivision. Excuse me, I'm just taking a mouthful of coffee because I'm going to cough any second. Excuse me. One level of subdivisions or two or three or however high you want to go, but one's usually enough. Or you can hold down the control key and above it on the number keys you can hit 1, 2, 3, however many you want. You can see it's added the subdivision there, so I'm doing control and 1 and there it is added there. So that's looking okay. I'm just going to bring Suzanne down a little bit so she's kind of sitting on the plane. So now we want to give it some materials, and what I'll do down the right hand side here, these are the modifiers, these are the materials here. We can give Suzanne a new material and give her maybe a colour. I'm going to make her brownish because it seems like a sensible colour to make her. I'm just going to hit up here where there's a same little material icon. And that's material view. So you can see what she's going to look like. Make her a little bit lighter. And in fact, I'm going to add a couple of materials here. So I'm going to select all of those and all of those. Don't know how this is going to work, but I'm going to make those white. So we'll add another material slot and just leave that at white and hit assign. And then I'm going to use the circle select tool and just hit in the middle there, that'll select all of those as well. And I think there's something down the side. I'm going to hit Control and plus to grow the selection. If I turn off this modifier, or at least hide it for now, you'll be able to see the actual geometry a bit better. That's not so bad. And I'm going to give her, I don't know, maybe blue eyes, green eyes, I don't know. Choose a colour. Red eyes. Ho 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 ho. Evil. Evil Suzanne. Okay. So there's our monkey with 3 materials. I'll just turn the subdivision surface back on. And I think I'll apply that because I'm kind of more or less done with that. The torus, nice and easy. We'll give that something different. New material. We'll make it bluish, but I'm also going to make it metallic all the way up, and we'll turn the roughness down so we start to get a few kind of reflections on there. And then this one, I'm going to make this one pink. But we'll turn the roughness down but not the metallic up. So this one has a metallic look. This one just looks more like plastic or something like that. And then I guess we'll just give the ground a colour if for no reason other than it seems sensible. So we'll make that kind of green. So the ground I wouldn't bother with. But these 3, I want to combine all these instead of having 5 materials, because there's 3 on Suzanne and 1 each on these. I want it all combined into one single material. And the way we do it, First thing we need to do is to unwrap everything. They're probably already unwrapped. I know the blender objects are already unwrapped, but we need to arrange them all on the same UV kind of space and have the gaps between them. Otherwise it's not going to work, and you'll see why in a minute. So if we select all of these, up here in UV editing, I'll hit A to select everything, and you'll see here we've got an absolute mess. It looks awful. If I was to select this sphere, UV is taking up the whole of the space. The Taurus, Suzanne, it's all taken up, and they're all overlapping, which is not what we want. Because what it's going to do, it's going to take one of the objects. It is unwrapped, which basically means it's like as if it was made out of paper. You've made some strategic cuts in it and spread it flat on the table, so you can then paint like a pattern, an image on it, and then put it all back together again. And that's basically all texturing is on these things. But what Blender will do is it'll take one, it'll give it its image, it'll take the second one, it'll put that over the top, third one, put that over the top, and it's just going to make a right mess of your image. So we want these all separated so we can have one in one area, one in another, etc. The best way to do it is just go UV, Pack Islands, and hit OK. And there we'll have everything separated, nothing's overlapping. We can give it a little bit of a margin because we need a little bit of overlap for the texture. So this time I'm going to pack it again. If I can figure out how, where's it gone? Pack Islands. And I'm going to change this to 0.02 perhaps, and OK. And now you can see there's a bit of a gap between everything. So we've got, it's like a margin of error. It'll just keep it looking clean. So we've done that. Now what we want to do is we want to go into every material on every object. So we're going to start with the sphere. And this is where you use the shading tab at the top here. And in here, we want to bake everything. We want to bake the diffuse, which is the base colour. We want to bake the roughness. And if it had a normal map, we would bake normals as well, but we're not using normal maps on any of these today. But I might cover those because it's useful to be able to bake even normal maps onto atlases as well. So what we'll do is we'll add an image. I've done that using hotkeys. If you didn't know, it's Shift and A and then S for search and then IM for image, and it's at the top there. Or you can go to add, you can use the search box there, or you can put in texture and then it'll be here somewhere, image texture. Don't connect it up to anything. We're just going to bake the colour onto this. And what we're going to do is, we'll give this a name. We're just going to call it Atlas, I guess. We'll leave it at 1024. I'll turn off alpha because we don't have transparency in any of these materials. It's just an extra channel that's not being used, so that's going to save a bit of processing power. And then we need to copy this, and we need to go to the other objects. And here we know that Suzanne has got 3 materials, so on material 1 we paste it in. Material 2 we paste it in. Material 3, because what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to use the same image and bake every single material that image is in onto it. So we don't want to miss any off. We've done Suzanne. We're going to do the Taurus, paste, and make sure that you have a white border around it to show that this is selected in every single material. White border, white border, white border, and the sphere, yeah, so they're all selected. And then what we need to do now is select all of the objects. And this is where I panic that I've missed something out, but I don't think I have. If you're going to bake, it needs to be done in cycles. So change to cycles. If you have a compatible GPU, it'll tell you, it'll be grayed out if it's not, but use GPU compute, which will be quicker. I'm going to turn off denoise because I don't want it to have any blurred edges. I'll turn down the max samples though to like maybe 1024, maybe even less, maybe 512. I could go even lower than that. In fact, you know what? They're just basic flat colours, aren't they? Let's turn it down to 128. And then come down to the bake tab here. And because we're now baking the diffuse colour, I've just called it Atlas, but I'll remember it's diffuse. Come down here and we choose diffuse. So it's basically just the colour and nothing else. I don't want to bake any shadows into it, so I'm going to turn off direct and indirect. We're just baking the colour. We'll turn down the margin. Don't need that many. I'm going to say maybe 6. And I think that's about it. So what we should happen now is if we bake, it's going to take a couple of minutes. I'll just zoom out of here and you can see, oh, it's not worked. And the reason it's not worked, I don't know why, but we've got the sphere and then we've got Suzanne's eyes. If I was to plug that in, we've got Suzanne's eyes on the sphere. So that's not worked. Something's gone wrong with the unwrapping. So we'll just double check it. Select all 3. And yeah, the eyes are there. So I don't know why that has happened. Pack Islands again. There we go. Now it's got them separate. So I didn't notice that before. So we're going to go through here, check everything again. Suzanne, Taurus, they should all be selected for Suzanne as well. Yep. Sphere's the one I changed. So select all 3 objects and bake again. So we've got the sphere and Suzanne and no Taurus. Now I know why. Because we've got metallic and it always turns out black when you're baking diffuse. So temporarily I'm going to turn metallic off. And we'll try again. There we go. Now we've got the blue for the Taurus. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this file into probably my temp folder. I'll just create a new folder, which I'm going to call Atlas, so I know what it is. I'll delete it afterwards. We'll just stick it as untitled. And this image, I'm going to save a copy. And I'm going to call it Atlas Diffuse. So we've got that in there. I'm going to open up my temp folder and Atlas. And there it is. Looking fine. And there's my Blender file. So we've done that. Now what I want to do is turn the metallic back up on here. I'm going to bake the metallic next. So back to here, change this from diffuse to glossy because for some reason it doesn't say metallic. Not entirely sure why, but we'll give that a try. bake. No, that's not it either, is it? Why have I not got a metallic here? Glossy transmission, roughness, UV, normal position, shadow, ambient. Weird. Yes. Never mind. What we do know, this is a rather cool thing you can do as well. You can use RGB values. Come on. And if you were to plug that into metallic, I've done that with Suzanne, you can actually go from black, which is no metallic at all, to fully white, and it's fully metallic. So what I can do, I can just delete that and bring another one in, I guess, on the right thing. Make it fully metallic. And then this is another cool trick you can do is you can plug that directly into the output instead of having to go through a shader and bake it as a matte. And we can do the same for all of them. So this one, we can go to the roughness, for instance. I've got a roughness of 0.122. Technically, this is something I haven't tried. I'm just experimenting. If I was to change that to have a value of 0.122, I should get exactly the same result. And I do. So that's handy to know. So I'm going to do that for all of them, I think, and just use a matte, and then we'll get exactly what we want for the metallic bits. So we'll just get rid of, why is this still metallic? Does that still look metallic to you? Yeah, because it's turned right up, that's why. Okay. So this is fully metallic. And then we'll want, I'll copy that. And we'll paste it in here. And this isn't to be at all metallic. Plug that straight into there. And we'll also plug it into there, just because. And then this one is to be not at all metallic, so black. And then we also want the other materials doing as well, don't we? So paste, not metallic, and paste, not metallic. So now I'm aware that this is probably not making an awful lot of sense, but I promise it will. The reason we're bypassing the shader and plugging straight into the output is because it's essentially making it an unlit shader. It's not affected by light whatsoever, which is why it looks completely flat and has no dimension at all. So it's basically the same as emission that you use in kind of Unity and stuff. So we'll select all of these, and this time, instead of baking it as metallic, we're going to bake it as emit. And this is much quicker because it doesn't have to do any light calculations whatsoever. And that's it. So the only thing that's white is the torus, everything else is black. And we're going to save that as Atlas Metallic. And And then we're going to do the roughness. I did say this was the long way around. So plug that back in, and we'll plug this into roughness, which is 0.122. So we choose value 0.122. This one has a roughness of 0.264. Move that to roughness, value 0.264. And this is 0.5 across the board for all of these materials because that's the default setting and I didn't change it. So this one, value 0.5. So that's exactly how they're supposed to look. We'll go through everything again, make sure Atlas is selected on every material. Select all the objects. And we'll just do the same thing again. Bake as emit. No, we don't. We will plug that straight into the material output. Lordy. This is how I work normally, you know. I'm constantly making mistakes and think, oh, I forgot to do that. Must remember to do that next time, and then I still forget. Right, so select the image we're going to bake to. Select all the objects. Bake as emit. Save, a copy, and this is the roughness. Okay. Now for the fun bits. So we'll go to the sphere and we'll get rid of those. We've got these 3 images. We'll just drag them in, plug in the diffuse, make sure the shader's connected up. In fact, if we start with a brand new material so you can see exactly what's happening, this is just the standard default material, nothing going on with it. Plug in the diffuse, it's got its colour. Plug in the metallic. Well, that hasn't worked, has it? Oh, I know why. Is it because it should be non-colour data? Oh, don't know what I've done there. Still got something wrong. I've probably put the wrong value into the RGB when I did it. Plug in the roughness. Oh, it doesn't have any metallic, that's why. Plug in the roughness and it's shiny. Now, if we select this and choose exactly the same material as the one I've just created, which is material 7, the last one, that one is blue and it's metallic. And with Suzanne, we can actually delete all of the materials and just choose that one. And there's Suzanne. One material, one texture on all the objects. And so now what we can do, we can either export these as one object for Unity, or we can do them separately but just use one material, whichever you prefer. It's usually best to combine them if you can, but in this instance I'm not going to. So I'm going to take the sphere. What I'll do is I'll just delete its material. Make sure that rotation is 0 and scale is 1, so you know that that's all being applied before you export to Unity. And then File, export as FBX. Where is it? FBX. And I'm going to pop it into my test space, which is this one I've got open ready. Pop it into there, and I'm going to call it sphere. And we want selected object only and just the mesh. Export. So now if I go back to Unity, there's my sphere, which I can bring in. And I can press F to zoom in on it. We know that's working fine. Torus, same again. File, export, FBX, torus. We've already got selected objects in mesh in the right folder. There's my torus, except what I didn't do was, you don't have to do this, but I find it best to, is just to remove the material when you've done this and then you recreate it after. Export FBX, torus again. Can bring that in. And lastly, Suzanne. Remove a material. File, export FBX, or do what I did the quick way. F4 to bring up the file menu. E for export, F for FBX. Suzanne. And there's Suzanne. So there's your items in. I'm not going to bother exporting a plane because I can just as easily add a plane here. Which I'll just reset to the center. So now we just need to make our material. Now this is where shader graph comes in handy. There's a few things you can do. Normally I would recommend, if you don't have shader graph, just try and find a shader that you can actually use your metallic and your roughness with. Not all shaders work in Banter. Normally I would say, I'm just going to call this Atlas again, same as before. I would say just have a play around and find one that works. Autodesk Interactive is generally not a bad one. If you avoid normal maps, you're generally okay with this, because at least that way there's a place for you to plug in your roughness map. The more optimized way of doing it is to just make your own shader if you have Amplify, because you're simply just using what you need. You're keeping it as small as possible. With this Autodesk Interactive, it's a shader that's set up with lots of different options. And even if you only use a couple of them, like albedo, metallic and roughness, and you don't use anything below that, it's still got to load all that in and like do calculations on it and stuff. And that is, it's not great. The more materials they use, the more you might find it's going to affect performance. So I always say make your own if you can. For now, I'll just use this Autodesk Interactive one, and we'll bring in our 3 images. I've created a material, so I just need to plug in the diffuse, which is called albedo here, the metallic and the roughness. And then all we need to do, we need to tell these 2 are grayscale maps. It needs to use values of between 0 and 1 and nothing else. It doesn't need to know that there's 3 different channels, red, green and blue channel that it has to look at. So we just untick RGB and tell it it's just the basic raw data 0 to 1 that it's interested in. So untick RGB. This one obviously has to be RGB. And then all we do is we drag the material onto each of our objects, and Bob's your uncle. Now that doesn't look like much at the moment, and I'm not entirely sure why. Let's have a look at the lighting. Have I got any baked lighting? Yes, I have. Clear baked data. There we go. That's fixed that. So we got a shiny sphere, we've got a metallic torus, and we've got a kind of semi-diffuse Suzanne the monkey. One material, 3 images, but that's because it's a PBR texture. I have covered channel packing in the past, which I'm happy to go over if anybody's not familiar with it. If you've got several grayscale maps, you can actually use the RG and B channels, red, green and blue channels of a colour image to store 3 grayscale maps in it. So you're reducing one texture or 3 textures, or even 4 if you use the alpha channel as well. You're combining 3 or 4 textures down to 1, which saves you a lot of space. But then you do have to have a custom shader to make use of it. Custom shaders, as I say, are easy if you've got Amplify. I recommend you get it, always recommend you get it, because it's awesome. You can do some amazing things with it. I'm just going to call this a basic PBR, just call it PBR. If you don't know what PBR means, it's any of these textures that has roughness and metallic and normal maps. It basically stands for physically based rendering, and it's different images you have to use to create the effect that you want. So this is a PBR texture. We basically need to add, I'm going to hold down the letter T for texture, bring in a texture sample, and another, because there's 3 of them. This top one is going to be plugged into the albedo, so we'll call that colour. This one gets plugged into metallic, so we'll call that metallic. Now, if I don't have a metallic map and I want to use this same shader, I need to decide, is it going to be fully metallic or not metallic at all in the absence of a metallic map plugged in? Well, I want it to not be metallic at all, so I'm going to make the default black. But with this roughness, hang on, Unity uses smoothness, not roughness. Blender uses roughness maps, so I'm going to call this roughness. So we need to invert the roughness so that it becomes smoothness, and we'll do that with a 1- node. So we'll plug that into there and that into there. And the roughness, we want it to be fully rough in the absence of a roughness map, because we want to be able to make it, like turn it down to make it more shiny. So that needs to be white, which has a value of 1. Black has a value of 0, white has a value of 1, and then anywhere in between is just a shade of grey. So we'll save that. And then we'll just drag the shader. Yeah, we'll drag the shader onto the atlas. So now this isn't using Autodesk Interactive, it's using our own, and we've only got 3 options: colour, metallic and roughness, which we can plug in. And you get the same result. So that's how you make your own custom shader, basically. And one of the cool things you can do with Blender, I have done this before, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but that's not what I wanted. I'm just going to go through here and select these materials again. Although I think probably only one of them is necessary. We'll just use the sphere anyway. So what I'm going to do is combine the metallic and the roughness together into one texture. So we need, trying to think how to do this. We need a combine RGB mapped node, combine colour. That's what we need. And then my acronym I usually use for red, green, blue is ARM, because it's easy to remember, ARM. So A for ambient occlusion, which we're not using, R for roughness, and M for metallic, So red, green, blue, ARM. So in this case, I'm going to plug in the metallic into the blue and the roughness into the green. And then I will add an RGB node. And we want ambient occlusion just to be just white, I guess. I don't know, whatever. Yeah, white, ambient occlusion. And then we'll plug that into the material output. So now I guess we just need to bake it again, don't we? As emission. So we need to create an image to bake it to. This one we're going to call packed maps. Copy it and put it into the other objects. Well, it's all got the same material, so it's already in. I don't know why I bothered with that. Select all of them. Bake as emission again. And I'm guessing this is going to work. I don't know. We shall soon find out. Packed maps. And we'll save a copy as packed maps. Back into Unity. I'm now going to I'm going to get rid of the metallic and the roughness. I'm going to bring in one texture node, which I'm going to call packed, or packed channels, or whatever you want. And this already has RGB channels. So ARM, roughness, goes into the 1-, which goes into smoothness. R is ambient occlusion, which we're not using, but I'm hoping if I've set it to white, it's not going to do anything. And blue is metallic, so we'll plug that into metallic. So ARM. Save that. And then keep your fingers crossed. So we just need the packed. Where have I put it? I did save it, didn't I? Where did I save it as? Oh, I've put it into C temp, of course. Didn't save it directly in the folder. So we'll pop that into there. Packed maps, plug that in. And there we go, it still works. So, yeah. We could essentially delete those because we've now got one packed image with our grayscale maps on. And it's one material and it's one texture, and yet they're separate objects. And it's really cool way of optimizing your space if you've got lots of small items. Can't recommend it enough. I think that's about it. Was there anything else I was going to cover? I can't remember. I guess that's it. Has anybody any questions? Or can anybody think of something else I said I was going to do before the end of the session? Because I've forgotten.
I don't know.
You're very quiet. I wonder if I need to turn my sound up. Hang on. Oh, volume
No.
max, it says.
No, I think people said I
No, I can hear
sound a
you.
little bit. They could hear a lot of background noise, so I turned it down.
All right, okay. Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, it's just a little bit of a hum part. It's probably just the fan off your PC or something. And blue. I
think
can
it's
hear
more
blue as
Christmas,
well.
so-
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can hear the cat.
blue
Yeah.
one's food.
Yeah. Nothing new there. Well, has anybody got any questions? Or is there anything you'd like me to clarify? Or anything new you want me to do, to explain? Oh, we've still got a few minutes left. Otherwise, I'll just think of something to fill in the time. Because I'm sure I can. Shall I do something cool with Amplify?
Yeah.
Let's see. I'll just bring in another sphere. And we'll just move it over here. And move it down a bit. And zoom in. Okay. So now I want to give this another material. So I'm going to call this, I don't know what I'm going to call it. We'll just leave it as new material, I guess, and drag it onto the sphere. Now I want a couple of textures, so I'm going to have a little search online in this 3D assets thing. We'll have a look in maybe Polyhaven. No, we'll try ambient CG as well. And we'll look for rock. Find something rocky that looks interesting. I guess anything really does, doesn't it? Let's find something that's a bit greyish. That one's probably okay, I guess. So open that up and we'll just download the 2K texture. And I'll just cut that and go into D, partner projects, test. Where is it? Test, assets. Paste that in there. So that's it there. And then I'll just unzip it quickly. Wow, that's taken a while. So there's me rock. That's why there's loads of images, but we don't need all of those. Ambient occlusion we'll use the colour. Displays, well, we might, I don't know. Normal DX we don't use because Unity doesn't use OpenDX, it uses DirectX, it uses OpenGL, and roughness. So I'll also look for a mossy texture or a grassy texture perhaps. So grass, nah, moss. Oh, could look for snow even. I just want something to go on the top of the rock. That looks interesting and not too far away from the grey rock. It's more like a forest ground, but there you go. 2K. Copy that. The partner projects, test, assets, paste it in, unzip. And then we've got the ground as well. It's called ambient occlusion, colour, displacement we're not going to use, and normal DX we're not going to use. Right, so, and we've got the material, we just need to make a shader. So create, amplify shader. I'm going to call it triplanar. I'm going to bring in a triplanar sample. And it is a sphere that we've got, so we'll leave this as spherical. Triplanar obviously is just, you've got, on any cube for instance, you've got, you know, 6 sides and 2 of them are on the X axis, 2 are on the Y, 2 are on the Z, so it's 3 planes basically that it works on. And basically what we're going to do is apply a texture to actually, you know what, I don't know if I want to do that. Let's change that to cylindrical, because otherwise I'm going to be using lerp nodes and I can't be bothered with that. We haven't got time, we've only got 3 minutes. So we'll plug that into the albedo to start with. So the reason I've chosen cylindrical is because we've got top, middle and bottom, and technically we could try plugging the moss into the top and have the rock in the middle and the bottom, and then use the fall off to blend them together and see how it works. So the first thing we need to do is to bring in a texture object node. This one uses texture object, not texture sample, so there's no shortcut for that. And we want to duplicate it, and so we want the moss and the rock. So I'm just going to say here moss, so I know which is which, and rock. Plug the moss in the top and the rock will plug into both the middle and the bottom. We need a world position node so that it, wrong one, try again, world position, so that it basically knows where in the world the thing is. I don't have to worry about unwrapping it and making things, different textures fit on different bits of it. The tiling, we will use a float because we might want to adjust it. I'll set it to 1. A float is just a value, that's all it is. We'll plug that into tiling, and we'll want to make it a property so that we can see it in the material and adjust it. So we're going to call that tiling. And then the fall off, I'll just duplicate that float and we'll call that one blend amount, maybe something like that. And we'll set that as a default of 0 and plug that into fall off, and let's see if that works. And this is only for the colour at the moment. We'd have to do all of this again for the roughness and the normal and everything else, and plug them all in, just duplicate all of that and plug it into the different things. But for now we'll leave that. We'll drag that onto the new material and let's see if it works, because I don't know. I'm going to lock that so I don't lose it on the screen. We want the moss, which we have called ground, goes into there, and the rock goes into there, and then we've got a definite line, so I wonder, blend amount, we can just adjust that and make them, that looks pretty cool. So 2 textures and we've got them blended together, so doesn't matter where. Am I going to lose the moss as well? No, I'm not. I mean, you can see the texture moving, but it doesn't matter whereabouts my object is, or even if I rotate it, it's still always going to have moss on the top, which is useful if you want to create like a snowy surface on things. If you want everything to look like it's got snow lying on the top of it, just add that node to your material, to your shader. Pretty cool. Yeah, I like that effect. I think that's quite snazzy. Tiling, again, it just adjusts the size, how much tiling you have. Very, very low, turn it up a bit, turn it up a bit more. Doesn't affect the blend at all. Yeah, there you go. And look at that, it's a minute past the hour. So that's filled a little bit in. Recommended, have a play with that. Try planar. Oh, come on. Try planar shaders. Absolutely fun, huge amount of fun, and no UV unwrapping required. You will need UV unwrapping if you're going to be baking your lighting, which you should be doing anyway, but it doesn't affect anything because you're using a tri-planar shader. You can just do a basic smart UV unwrap, give it a bit of padding, you're ready to bake your lighting to that UV channel, because this doesn't use it. So yeah, you go. Bit of fun.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah, okay, well, as I say, it's a couple of minutes past 8. Thank you for coming along. If anybody has any requests for me to cover anything in the future, I'm more than happy to. I know Designer Girl was very keen on learning about shaders and stuff, and some other things, but honestly, it's a case of whoever's here. I'll do whatever you want me to do if you're here. You know, if you're not going to be here, I'll wait until you are and we'll cover the stuff you're interested in then. So I'm saving Designer Girl stuff for when she's able to make it. So yeah, there we go. Thank you for coming along. I'm going to stop the recording and I'll get